I think if you mention school dinners to like anybody my age, Turkey Twizzlers and Jamie Oliver will come up in conversation.
Hello and welcome to School Lunch Program, a show where we talk about what was for lunch, what is for lunch, and what will be for lunch. My name is Andrew and I'm here with my friend Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
And today we are here with special guest Natalia Ford, food blogger in the UK. Hi, Natalia.
Hello. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Matt.
I'm so excited to have you on because I feel like school lunch is going to be a little different for you than it was for us. So I think we'll have a lot to talk about. But before we start, let's hear the lunch menu for the week of April 20th, 2026 at Wolcott Public Schools in Wolcott, Connecticut. Matt, what do we got for the week of April 20th?
On Monday the 20th, they'll have combo platter. That's 3 mozzarella sticks and marinara sauce, 3 chicken tenders with a garden salad and ranch dressing. On Tuesday the 21st, Eagle Bowl, which is chicken smashers, mashed potatoes, steamed corn, and a honey bun. On Wednesday the 22nd, they'll have beef nachos, which is seasoned ground beef with tortilla chips, cheese sauce, cilantro lime rice, seasoned black beans, jalapenos, lettuce, salsa, and sour cream. On Thursday, it's National Picnic Day. They'll have corn dog nuggets, a side of mac and cheese, Harvest Alert potato salad, campfire baked beans, and watermelon. And then on Friday, there's new homemade pizza.
Whoa.
Cheese or pepperoni options, and there'll be a garden salad with balsamic dressing or a cheeseburger. And then for the whole week, there's a sandwich special of a spicy chicken flatbread.
New homemade pizza. That's interesting. They got a new kind of pizza addition to the menu.
I guess I wonder what'll be different about it.
Anything stick out to you, Natalia?
I was like thinking about every single item of food, and I don't think any of that would have been served when I was at school.
I mean, some of this stuff we wouldn't have either, but they had the beef nachos. They call it beef nachos. They don't call it chili cheese nachos anymore. Well, that was great. Natalia, me and Matt prepped for this show by watching Jamie Oliver's School Dinners, which is a TV show from 2005 where celebrity chef Jamie Oliver goes to a school in London and looks at what food they serve kids in the school and how it's made and all that. And he wants to improve on it, which, was a lot of processed fatty foods.
What on earth is that?
I think it's a fish or a chicken foot.
I honestly have no idea what is in that. Look at us. We're in a beautiful room surrounded by beautiful children, innocent, pure. Their bodies and their bones are growing up, most important time in their life. And, and we're being fed this. It's not right.
You've seen this show, right?
Yeah, so I was at school when the show aired, and I witnessed the change that it made. He did make a huge impact. He did eventually change the laws, I think. But
Wow.
I really noticed a shift in the school dinners from the first 2 years I was at one school to the next.
Oh, okay. So you did. Okay. That's the first question I was going to have. But also, let's get this out of the way. You guys call it school dinners, and
yeah,
it's so.
Call it
do you guys
dinners.
not use the word lunch?
So we it's lunchtime, but we call it school dinners, and they're dinner ladies, but it's lunch break, and it's a packed lunch.
So I was telling my wife that we were doing prep for this, and she was like, "They call it dinner or what?" And I said, "Yeah, I think." And so here I'll show off my knowledge of European culture again. To me, even in my United States culture, dinner is the main meal, and lunch is what you have in the noontime, and supper is what's at the evening time. And so either of those things can be dinner. And I know from my own studying French and just seeing other people study Spanish that the lunchtime meal is the biggest meal of the day, typically. And so I think that's what's happening here.
I don't think English people can really agree though. Some people will call it tea, some people will call supper lunch. It's really confusing.
So in the special, it was a lot. I remember some of the food was smiley fries, hamburgers, pizza, something called Turkey Twizzlers. Was that a thing that you enjoyed?
Turkey, I think if you mention school dinners to anybody my age, Turkey Twizzlers and Jamie Oliver will come up in conversation. They were meat springs, basically. It was processed turkey, kind of tomato flavored, and they were so good.
Is that like chicken nuggets kind of equivalent. Did you have chicken nuggets at school?
Yeah, they didn't really serve chicken nuggets. It was a lot of weirdly processed turkey. I remember we had like turkey dinosaurs, turkey ladders.
Yeah, turkey dinosaurs. Someone else mentioned this to me too. So that was in 2005, that special. And then after that aired, there really was a push of like changing the menu in schools.
Yeah.
Did you witness that and you saw like the menus were like a little healthier?
Yeah. So where I grew up, it's not like everywhere else in England. We had lower school, middle school, upper school, whereas everywhere else just has primary and secondary. So in middle school, it was the first 2 years there was a lot of like fizzy drinks being sold, crisps, everything. And then after that, they banned everything. You couldn't bring in like sweets for break time. You couldn't have like overly sugary foods in your packed lunch. They stopped selling everything. It was like a real immediate change.
Wow. And then what kind of food were they serving then?
I feel like the meals didn't really change. It was a lot of just potatoes and vegetables. And I don't think my schools were particularly too unhealthy because I saw a lot of like pizza in the Jamie Oliver thing, but we didn't really have pizza at school.
What town did you grow up in?
So I am from a town called Bedford. It's like an hour-ish away from London. You might hear of it because it's where the new Universal is going to be.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay, so what was your favorite lunch growing up?
My favorite lunch was Turkey Twizzlers, and I never liked the school potato options because they never did like chips or the mash was just really dry, and so I liked when they had just plain pasta and then sweet corn.
And then what did you have to drink?
So I don't like milk. Then that was normally the only other option. Again, they also banned squash, like fruit juice. So we couldn't even have that. We had to have water or milk. So I just had water. Not very exciting.
Oh, wow. What other stuff was on the menu?
It was a lot of beige, like shepherd's pie, I remember was a real popular one. That would be on daily. Some sort of meat in gravy, maybe a pie. The sort of like wetter options were never good. I'd normally just go for the kind of the Turkey Twizzlers and beans with a vegetable.
Right.
It was either beans or sweet corn or carrots. That was it.
I feel like you guys do eat a lot of beans, right?
So many beans. We used to have this thing when I was in upper school called Pasta King, and it was like just like a pot of pasta, and there were 3 sauce options every single day. It was a meat sauce, tomato sauce, or beans, and that was lunch. But I hate baked beans, so I'm probably the worst example.
Oh, right. Yeah, you did mention this. I think there was actually baked beans on that menu that we just pulled earlier, right? Campfire baked beans.
Yeah, campfire baked beans. But I think that like the few times that I've had like the stereotypical British Heinz baked beans, they weren't good. They were like flavorless. Yeah. And like when the American baked beans that I've had, like our classic New England area Bush's baked beans, is like, I don't know, smoky and salty.
And sugary.
So there's just, and sugary. And there's always that like chunk of lard in there too that like is supposed to add flavor to it. They're more flavorful, but do I need a baked bean with a piece of lard in the can?
That's why we laugh like when baked beans is like the vegetable inclusion at the school lunch, because it's just like baked beans here is so unhealthy.
They even put it on the can. It's one of your 5 a day.
That's wild. I don't know where that came from. So did you get first of all, did you pay for lunch when you go to school?
I didn't, but that's just because like single mum. But you normally did, and I really didn't know how that worked because I just blissfully went into school, said my name, and I was good. I remember there was like a tin in the morning. I think people would put their money in, and then someone would have to take it to the office every single morning. Yeah,
we had like a cashier at the end of the line who would collect what we were buying. So like the meal was one price, but then like there were additional snacks or things you could buy that had like an additional price. There's been a lot of initiative, I think, in the United States, but definitely in Connecticut, my state, where they're trying to just make lunch free for everybody.
I think they're trying that.
I agree on the basis that simplifies everybody's life and takes away the shame for the kids who can't afford. We were talking with Allegra a few episodes ago, and I think that her school is all now online payment. Like, even if you pay for lunch, your parents prepay, and then you just say your name when you get to the line. So that is also like a shame removal and simplification mechanism.
Do you get hot lunch in school often, or did you bring bagged lunch or whatever?
I normally had a packed lunch. Sometimes in the winter would be school dinners, but you couldn't sit together if you had like packed lunch or if you had school dinners. They like separated you. I know.
Why?
So I just did what my friends did. I didn't want to be alone.
Whoa. So why was that? Because of like allergies and stuff?
I think it's just so people aren't like walking around everywhere with trays. So it was like still one big hall that we all had lunch in, but it was like half had to be packed lunch, half had to be school dinners. You couldn't mix.
What? That's wild.
It was
like
insane.
such a that's such like a social like weird construct that they make. So it's like, oh, you got your lunchbox, go over there.
The whole system for in middle school for going into lunch was really weird because you had to, there were like 4 sets that you could go in. So if you were first lunch, second lunch, third lunch, fourth lunch, and then you had to line up 2 separate queues, school dinner, packed lunch, then go into the hall, and then from once you get through the door into the hall, you separate it. one door you go packed lunch, one door school dinners, and then like however many people you want to sit with. So if it's like 2 people, you have to say 2 to the lady, and then she'll point where to sit.
Oh, wow, like a restaurant.
Yeah, military precision. It was terrifying.
Was that like a lot of schools did that, or was that more for your school?
I think that might have just been my school. I think a lot more schools were a bit more lenient with everything because we couldn't even eat outside. Like we had to eat in this one hall.
Wow, something must have happened. There must have been an incident where they had to control that. Okay, so from what I've seen from post Jamie's school dinners, the Turkey Twizzlers are gone. They're banned from schools.
They did bring them back.
They did.
They did. They brought them back a few years ago and they were terrible. They were like weird flavors. They did like a chili cheese flavor. They did a cheese and bean flavor.
Cheese and bean
and
flavored turkey?
Horrible. Yeah. Like just, I think there were like chunks of bean within the spiral, but they didn't last. They didn't last.
What is this company that makes this is like, we need to get this product out?
Well, okay, so from the Wikipedia page, the company is Bernard Matthews Foods.
Yeah.
They're a British farming and food products business which specializes in turkey products. So that might also speak to your experience of having more turkey things than chicken things.
I think he just had a deal with schools. But there was, and then there was like a huge bird flu thing that he was involved with.
Do you have turkey more than chicken in general?
No.
That's just like a school thing?
That was just a school thing. Yeah. Normally it's chicken. Like we only really have turkey at Christmas. That's it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, same for Thanksgiving here. So yeah, that's weird that they would have that in school. Like, yeah, it's like some guy really got in on this contract for a school lunch.
Maybe turkey handles better as a processed food sometimes. I mean, when you think about cold cuts, like you have roast turkey.
That's true.
As a sandwich more than you do chicken.
Yeah, I forgot about deli meat. So what would you bring to school if you had a packed lunch?
So I was like a very adventurous kid with food. I would eat like anything. And I really hated like boring sandwiches because everybody would just have like either just plain ham or plain cheese. So I liked a tuna sandwich, and my favorite sandwich was like a chicken mayo gherkin mix. And it was like only something I used to have, I think, because kids would like kind of look
salad
and be like, oh, what's that? And then I got a bit embarrassed about it. And then a bag of crisps, I would always put some crisps in the sandwich and then smush it down. Everybody did that. That was...
Oh, yeah. We talked about that before. That's great.
It's really good.
Did you have the option once you were like later in school to like leave to go and get lunch somewhere else?
Yeah. So upper school was year 9 to 12. So we could go to it was kind of in the middle of nowhere, but we could go to the chip shop, which was like a 25-minute walk away. We had an hour for lunch, but sometimes we would just do it just because we could. And then once some people started driving, we would drive up to the supermarket and get a meal deal.
And they trusted you to come back.
They did, but I think they stopped that pretty quickly after I left school.
Yeah, they never let us do that.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a story of like my mom's generation here, at least. And then that practice probably changed sometime.
Oh, you saying your mom's
in the
generation
90s. Yeah.
Got to leave. Oh, wow.
My mom was talking about like they were able to smoke in school.
That's crazy.
I like in the Jamie School Dinners documentary, all of the dinner ladies are just smoking around the table in all of the meetings.
Also, it's funny to think like, yeah, it feels modern to me, but like the time when he was trying to make this change and that show was produced was 20 years ago now. I don't know. It's a weird mental gymnastics that I have to do to say like, this is a historical artifact, but this is about the time that I was in high school. And also like this problem still has not been fixed everywhere.
Right. Yeah, that's what's getting older. That's what happens when you're getting older. Natalia, I had you go and look to see if you had any relics from your time in school. Can you share what you did find?
So I found my old lunchbox. This was my lunchbox from, I think, 2002 to 2004, 2005 maybe. She's in good condition for being about 20 years old.
What is this, Rabbits? Is this like a brand or is this like a...
There was a thing called Groovy Chick in school, and it was just... she didn't have a TV show or anything, but she was just this thing that everybody had like on their bags, on whatever, and the Rabbits was like an off thing of that.
That's wild you still have that.
Yeah, I know.
It also looks quite loved.
Yeah, it was well loved. It's not bad for 20 years old though, I think.
Yeah. And then you shared what was this? A handbook from your lower school that had a section about lunchtime.
I thought, great, this is going to have menus and stuff. This is going to have like what we had for lunch. But no, it didn't.
Can I read what it says here?
Yeah.
The annual Conquer Championship attracted more entries than ever this year. What is a Conquer Championship? Do you not have like conkers? I don't know what that is.
So,
I've heard this word before.
So
is it a scar on a tree?
Yeah, it's like something from a tree, and it's like a round, hard thing, and then people used to tie them to string, and you would like have one each and like whack it against each other, and whoever's conker breaks, you lost the competition.
Oh, okay.
You whack it against like a human's body or against the other conker?
No, like against another conker. But that was like a big...
That sounds more ethical.
Okay, I'll move on here. It says, the lunchtime staff organized a challenge fortnight for the children during the summer term. The classes in each group competed against each other in various sporting activities. The children took part and enjoyed themselves. Mrs. Williams, the senior lunchtime play leader, presented the school with trophies for the winning class in each year group. Senior lunchtime play leader. That's a great title.
I was actually skipping championship. I did win that.
Oh, so this is kind of like field day. Like we had something called field day.
Yeah, this reads like that to me.
Yeah, where it'd just be like little sporting activities that we'd all do. Okay, and then senior lunchtime supervisor Mrs. Williams resigned in July. So this is just like, here's what happened in the like school year or something.
I think so. I don't know how she still had it, but I was like, have you got anything from lower school? And she did.
And then you shared a photo of you in the age that you were in school. You're sitting down in like the cafeteria, I guess, and you're wearing like a school uniform. Yeah,
so we had school uniform all the way through.
Was that like an equalizer, you think? Everyone wearing uniforms?
I think so. It was really nice not having to think about what to wear every single morning. I think people would still like customize them in their own way, like, and like the school trousers you wore and school shoes you wore were like a very big deal. Oh. And like what bag you had and stuff.
Yeah, what lunchbox you had.
Yeah.
show off your identity and uniqueness where you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have thumb holes in my jumper was my thing. And we had to wear a tie. And so that would always be like really, really chunky, really short. That was the thing. If you had a long tie, you get out.
There was one year that the school told us that we should start dressing nicer and like sent a thing home to be like, here's what you should wear to school now. And my mom took it like really seriously. And like, I remember coming to school like on the first day of school in maybe like third grade with like a really nice polo shirt and like khakis and nice shoes. And then I walked in and everyone was just wearing the same thing that they've been wearing the whole time.
Yeah. I was going to say fourth grade, so that I'm the same age as you. I remember there being a thing of like, it's not enforced, but like, here's the suggested uniform. And like, I also did the same thing as you. So we probably saw each other on the bus and we were like, oh yeah, uniforms. And then we went to our respective differently aged classes and we're the only ones.
Yeah, and I was like, that guy's wearing Air Jordans. Okay, something I want to know, and we haven't found any evidence of this. Did you ever have a food fight in your cafeteria?
No. People would throw food, but we never had a food fight. And like every single morning, we had this like little quad at school. People would stand and wait to go to their classes. And there would always be somebody throwing fruit or yogurt just once, just up in the air. And it would always hit somebody. But it never turned into a full-blown food fight.
Wow. Yeah, you just get one out there and then it just gets shut down. Do you have any questions for us about American school lunch, especially in public schools?
I think, like, did you ever know, like, were there any, like, things growing up, like, laws change when you were, like, in school? Or was it all pretty much the same throughout, like, early years and later?
Yeah, it was pretty similar from, like, kindergarten all the way up to, like, high school graduation. But after we had graduated, there was an initiative by Michelle Obama to...
Which I looked it up when we were at the beginning of our talk, just to put context to that. It was 2010.
2010, after we'd graduate high school. And there was an initiative to like have healthier foods in school systems. So there was like more of a requirement for schools to get funding for their lunch program if they adhered to these kind of restrictions, like the amount of fat in foods and sugars and all that. So that changed after we left. So when we look at these lunch menus compared to what we used to have, they are like pretty different. And maybe that's also like distribution and all that, different companies they get the food from. But, you know, we never had like sushi or anything. And I've seen sushi on school kids' menus recently.
Or like to compare, so the beef nachos that we were calling out earlier, like, yeah, we had a nacho thing, but it was chili cheese and chips or crisps. But now like with rice and beans and peppers, that's like unusual, and that's more fiber or complex carbohydrates than we would have had.
Yeah, we would not have had cilantro lime rice with our...
Kids wouldn't eat it if that was in school.
Yeah, so in the program, Jamie Oliver, he like made like this nice focaccia bread with like vegetables and stuff. And then the kids didn't pick it. They just went and got the hamburgers and fries and stuff.
Yeah, I think that is one thing. Like, kids are fussy in England.
This jogs in my mind that I, as an adult, am still a relatively picky eater, and I'm like a big texture eater. And so, like, do I feel that I'm robbed by the food that I was brought up with? Whatever. I think that the biggest thing that was a positive that Jamie Oliver was doing in this show was his like week-long intensive stuff where he was trying to cook with the kids. And I think seeing where the food comes from and being involved in the production is probably the biggest benefit to combating that pickiness. And I think that having become an adult, I subscribed to HelloFresh and other meal subscription services for a few years on and off. And that, I think, I mean, not a sponsor here, but they made me a better cook and more willing to try new ingredients or new techniques. And Like, I'm not vegetable averse, but I think now I'm like, oh yeah, I'll eat any vegetable. Whereas probably before HelloFresh meals, I was like, I'm okay with just like potatoes and tomatoes.
Yeah. So I think we had a culinary class. I think it was called home economics.
Yeah.
And it was just baking. I remember just baking.
Yeah, we prepared a meal. We had like a dinner that we made with the whole class. And then there was a fair amount of baking. And then I think we spent, 1/4 in the kitchen and 1/4 doing budgeting and sewing. Yeah. And that was in middle school for us.
Yes.
And so for Natalia, did you have anything like this in your life, a cooking class or?
Yeah, so we had food tech, we called it. And then we also had, I think we had a home tech, I think we called it. Just like that was the sewing one. So I did food tech, and then we had a thing called GCSEs, and then you would do your A levels. So I did food tech for my GCSEs, and then because I was the only person in school that wanted to do food tech for my A levels, they didn't let me do it. So
oh, really?
That I could be a chef somewhere in the world, but they crushed my dreams.
There definitely was like food or culinary options at our high school level, but I was on like an academic track, and so I was in the kinds of courses that were not food courses.
Right. Like that is super important, I think, because a lot of school systems treat lunch as just like, here's a break in between school.
Or here we got to get some calories in you so you don't die.
Yeah, it should be something you're learning also. Like you should learn how to like have a balanced meal and how to like understand where all these different food groups land and all that. Consumption practices and all that. I think that's super important, and that leads to like a lot of different things in your life. I think they talked to I think it was some sort of scientist in that show where it was like kids are eating all this processed foods, like this is not good for them in the long term.
And there is no doubt if you achieve a reasonable amount of fruit and vegetables in your diet, you halve your risk of cancer.
Yes, fact.
You cut your risk of coronary heart disease, of diabetes, of osteoporosis, of all the problems that we as a nation are paying for through the National Health Service. They come back to what we're feeding our children.
I certainly still love chicken nuggets because that's probably because I loved them in school. You know, this my favorite food is like chicken nuggets and pizza. And I try to be an adventurous eater, and I think I am. But school, I think stuff like that. Maybe if they had like salmon or something growing up, I would have more healthier adult meals. I don't know.
20 years out of school has been able to just barely break the habits of 12 years in school.
Yeah. I mean, I was a pretty picky eater as a kid, but I've grown out of it. Natalia, you were pretty into food growing up. You were saying?
Yeah, I would eat anything, and there was like 3 foods I didn't like, which were baked beans, rice pudding, and then milk. And
okay.
but I think that's only because in school we were like forced to eat something, and they would watch you and so if beans were the only option, I'd have to have beans on my plate, and I didn't want to eat them. Same with rice pudding.
Yeah, so I mean, you do a lot of food blogging and making videos about food and restaurants around Bedford. Do you feel like a lot of that stuff growing up, your diet growing up, influenced your interest in food from school, or where did that come from, you think?
I think, yeah, definitely like a very young age. I would always watch cooking shows with my mum. We had like some Indian neighbors, so they would always make amazing food and bring it over. And Bedford's quite like a culturally diverse place, so we've got like everything here. So I think my mum, just because I'm like, my mum's side of the family, we're like Eastern European, so I would just grow up eating a load of stuff that people would just look at and be like, oh, that's disgusting. And I did go through like a little phase, like I think I was probably like 7 or 8, just being like, no, I don't want any of this. I just want chips. I just want what everyone else is eating. But I quickly got bored. But I still love chicken nuggets. And I still love like a really plain dinner sometimes.
Yeah, also that reminds me, in the TV show, he like made this like really nice spread of food for all these kids. One particular thing he made was asparagus. There was one kid who was eating it, and he was like, you could see he kind of liked it, and then he looked over his friend, and his friend didn't like it, and so he put it down. And there's like so much of that pressure in school too, where like maybe you can introduce good food to people, but sometimes it's just peer pressure, especially when they're separating the kids who have hot lunch and cold lunch.
Yeah.
Would your school have its lunch menu online? Do you think if we look that up, we would see something?
I don't know. It might do. It's quite a small school. I found the one for my middle school.
Okay, so what do we got here? Main course here: Cajun chicken skewer, stuffed field mushroom, savory rice, green beans. That sounds good.
That does sound good.
Cheeseburger with lettuce and relish, macaroni cheese with garlic bread, diced tomatoes and sweet corn, roast chicken with Yorkshire pudding, roasted vegetable Yorkshire pudding bake, roast potatoes, fresh vegetable and gravy. Oh, chili beef nachos, Matt.
Yeah, topped with cheese, jalapenos, and salsa.
Corn minced nachos. That must be like that fake meat corn.
Yeah, it's like soy.
Q-U-O.
Soy mince.
Yeah. Chicken goujons. What is that?
It's like a chicken dipper, like a long chicken nugget.
Wow, I'm adding that to my list of names for processed chicken. That's interesting. Wow. Anything surprising there?
The nachos, for sure, that wouldn't be a thing in school.
Oh, really?
I think when I was in middle school, I remember wraps became a thing, like tortilla wraps. That was like the big new thing. So nachos were a few years later. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel like wraps did like become a thing too when we were maybe like around the time McDonald's started doing like snack wraps.
I was going to say it. I feel like it was like a low calorie or an Atkins thing.
Yes, Atkins thing.
Have a wrap instead of a big piece of bread.
Yeah, Matt, you used to work at a Subway.
I did work at a Subway.
And did they had wraps back then when you worked there?
We did. We had wraps. They were far and few between. Out of maybe like 60 sandwiches a day, one was a wrap.
Yeah, who goes to Subway and gets a wrap?
I probably did like more salads than wraps.
Oh, yeah.
Probably do like 5 salads a day.
Did you have dessert in school lunch?
Yeah, I still like love school dessert. I think it's the best. That was the best part. Like apple crumble was my favorite. And then in Bedford only, we have this thing called chocolate toothpaste, which is like a chocolate tart and like a chocolate mousse thing. It's like thicker than a mousse and it's delicious.
Did they have that in school? Chocolate toothpaste?
Yeah, that was like a big thing in school. Get a little tart with like a little bit of cream and then some sprinkles on top.
We didn't have dessert in school, I don't think. Right, Matt?
There were cookies and stuff. Like there were sweets available.
Yeah, but you had to buy them extra, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true too, yeah.
Or like a vending machine with like snacks. Did you have any vending machines, Natalia?
No, I think I don't think they liked kids having money like hanging about, so I think they just tried to limit that as much as possible.
Because kids would steal each other's lunch money.
There was like a one little stall you could get stuff.
Oh, like what?
Yeah, like a little kiosk thing you could get crisps and stuff. But that was in middle school, and once Jamie Oliver came in, it was like all of the normal like Walker's crisps got replaced by these things called potato heads, which was like the healthier baked version. And it was like Lucozade energy drinks. They were just replaced with fruit juice.
Yeah, so he did a number on the schools, huh? Good for him.
Yeah. Some people really hate him though because he got rid of Turkey Twizzlers.
You can't get those anywhere else. Like there's only been a school thing. When you were in school was the last time you had it, right?
Yeah, I remember one friend had a bag in her freezer and she invited me. This was like a year after they'd stopped making them. They were like really freezer burnt, but we still ate them. And it was a bit emotional, yeah.
Twistedfood.co.uk has a recipe for do-it-yourself Turkey Twizzlers.
It's interesting, the shape. The shape is funny because it's like...
Yeah. Well, I mean... curly fry, right? I mean, that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, but
they
that's
were really
you can
springy,
like take
though,
a potato and
you can cut a potato in that shape. To cut a turkey in that shape is they're out of stock at Tesco right now online.
They were the new ones. The old ones, it was like completely different. They said we're bringing them back. It's going to be the same, but they weren't.
All right. Well, Natalia, thank you so much for joining us. This was so fun. Please come back if you have any other memories or if you've talked to some other people from your area. I would love to know their experience
please have
too.
me back. This was fun.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for watching and listening and doing all the other stuff. Please support your local lunch or
Dinner ladies.
yeah. Please support your local dinner ladies. Thank you and goodbye.